What up, everybody? Got a very, very special guest joining us. Again, we told y'all we're bringing a local talent, the people you may have heard of, some people you may have not, and we putting y'all on game, man. And we have another special guest, a man from a legend in the making, man.
Not quite.
In the making. We have a legend in the making joining us, man. He is a Houston artist, singer, songwriter, singer, jazz extraordinaire. HSPVA graduate. So shout out to that.
Right.
And performs under the name Lapland and also has a writing credit on the new Kanye album. So we're going to ask him about that as well, but also get his, his whole musical journey, man. We don't just talk about rap on this podcast. We're trying to broaden y'all horizons. All y'all listening to the same shit every week. No, we gonna put y'all on something different, man, because it's about time.
Just an FYI, you the third white person we had on this podcast.
Okay, oof, that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure.
Spot, but we're trying to expand a little bit, man.
Okay, I'll try to keep that in mind.
Yes, we have Josh Mease, aka Lapland, joining us today. Yes, give it up for him. Give it up for him.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thank you.
No, we appreciate you making time for us, man. We really appreciate it.
Of course.
So typically we just kick it off by talking about how this past year has been for you. You know, a lot of artists giving us different responses. Some people, pandemic and all that's been very hard. Some people, they've been flourishing during this time. I don't see how, because I was stressed the fuck out, but that was just me. But how have you been this last few years, man? How you been maintaining?
Oh man, I would say I've had better years than this last year. It's been difficult, for obvious reasons, but things are getting better. Some work is coming back and all that. Like I kind of went into childcare mode when the pandemic hit. I have a 4-year-old daughter, so. Oh. My wife's work held up. Mine did not as much being a musician, so I was at home being a babysitter. So my daughter just went back to school this week. So, man, I need a drink right now, actually, when I start talking about
it. That's a tough age, man. You're grinding it out right now. So.
Hey, absolutely.
We got to get to the shits, man. I ain't going to lie. So Kanye, it was a text thread tweeted that I guess a Kanye engineer pretty much fired a engineer pretty much because he was late. So I just want to ask you, is it hard to work with Kanye, man?
Well, unfortunately, I've never actually been in the same room as him, which is pretty typical of these kind of records. Usually there's different producers and groups of musicians kind of working in separate places, and as long as one of us has contact with Kanye, then we're good. But yeah, I've never met the man, unfortunately. Maybe I will soon. I don't know.
Yeah. So how did that come across? Because for people that don't know, you got a writing credit on the song Hurricane, which is on Ghana. Yes. Which is I would say probably one of the best songs on there. One of the songs they're trying to push. And currently is number 1, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, last I saw on Billboard, it was number 6, but I think the label has not pushed any song in particular yet. They picked that one this week to start pushing next week as a single. So that's great news. Yeah. But as far as my involvement in it, I kind of came to be involved because I work with a hip hop producer named DJ Khalil, who I've known for maybe 10 years. And I didn't start writing with him until I moved to LA about 5 years ago. And even then I didn't see him a lot. Like maybe 3 years ago, we were doing all these sampling sessions where me and a few other musicians would come in, play a bunch of stuff, different instruments, different ideas, different sections. And we probably made 300 samples, 200 samples. And DJ Khalil kind of passed them around to his producer friends. And I'm not sure which producer it was that got it to Kanye, but they picked one of our samples to write to. And this is back in 2018. And they picked that sample and wrote Hurricane to it. So that was a while ago. So it's taken a while for it to come out. There's been a lot of points when we didn't think it was going to make it or make the cut, but it did, luckily. So, yeah.
So which one was the sample? Which part was the sample?
Well, this is funny. I mean, the sample was in there up until about 2 weeks before it came out, maybe, or 3 weeks. So that was a bit of a bummer not to actually hear the music we wrote in it, the sounds we made in it. but we are still considered writers because they wrote to our chords. It's still all the same chord changes, same bass line, all that stuff. They kind of took it and reorganized the sample, kind of chopped it in a way to make it different, so it worked as a song. But yeah, unfortunately, I think it was the second listening party in Atlanta. I tuned into the live stream and the sample wasn't on there. I was like, ah, shit. All right, well, that's okay. We still get credit. You know, it's still all good. But it would have been nice to hear just one of the sounds we made in there. You know, so.
So is there a legal reason for taking a sample out? Because it seems like the definition of who's writing and who's not. Because, for example, there's a lot of controversy about Drake's album because he supposedly R. Kelly had a writing credit or some kind of credit on one song. But if you look into it, it was actually OG Ron C who does these chopped and screwed stuff, and he did an intro that was sampled that was over an R. Kelly song, and they took the R. Kelly song out. But R. Kelly, for some reason, still had to get the writing credit because of, I don't know, something in it that still remained that resembled the song. So is there like a legal reason why the sample might be taken out, or why do you think that is?
Well, in our case, I think it was just like an aesthetic decision. I think they wanted to make it a little more like kind of bare bones, kind of skeletal sounding, which it is, which I really like, actually. Not to, I mean, I wish our sample was in there, but I think they really used that as the raw material for the song. And then when you take it out, you might have other instruments playing the chords that we were playing in our sample or whatever, but we still, you know, we wrote that part of the music. So it's considered, you know, maybe in some instances they take stuff out for legal reasons, but this was just an aesthetic decision, I think, you know.
Yeah. And you said that sample was specifically created for that song, correct? It wasn't.
It was not. No, it was not actually. We would just get together. It's almost like you get together and make a collage with your friends, or, you know, not that any of us are doing that as adult men, but, you know, it's like you're just finger painting or something as a musician, and you just kind of we made a bunch of little pieces of work, you know. And I don't know how many he sent around, but they were all just kind of off the cuff, you know, and they picked the one they liked to write to. And that just happened to be one of the random ones we did. So it was all just kind of random.
That's really interesting to me because I feel like a lot of us, when we think of sample, we think of 90s boom bap, like a old James Brown record, a piece of that being looped, and that's a sample. I don't think most people realize that most like pop music, period, including rap music, is taken from somebody else's samples, but it's not from a widely distributed song or anything. It was just created. A bunch of people make samples to be sampled.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, it's really source material, you know? So I think the reason maybe you don't hear as many, and I don't know if this is true, because again, I'm not like a hip hop aficionado, but I think the reason you don't hear as many like James Brown samples as you did before, I think it just costs more money to clear those, you know?
Yeah.
So if you're taking somebody, a producer and a group of musicians sampling of something they made, it's an easier way to do it. Maybe cheaper in a way too.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
I 100% think that's the reason. They're trying to cut costs and save money. So
probably. Yeah.
So shoot, man, let's get into your history though, man. I want to know how you started, where your musical journey started. Like we had mentioned, you graduated from HSPVA, have been well traveled, have performed with many legends, including Robert Glasper, which I want to hear about as well.
Right.
But where did it all start, man? Where did your musical journey start for you?
I mean, for me, it probably started when I was 10 and I started playing guitar. That was my first instrument. I wanted to play drums first. My parents were not interested in that for obvious reasons, because they're loud as fuck. But I tried keyboard after that. That wasn't quite for me, and guitar sort of did it. And, you know, I like a lot of kids in the early 90s, like I was watching MTV all the time, and the guitar looked cool. And, you know, I mean, some of the music was maybe questionable what I was into at the time, but it just kind of made sense to me. I took a few lessons and I took to it and kept working on it. And after the MTV stuff, it was probably like the Beatles, like learning about older music. I think my parents had some cassettes in the house that I listened to, and that music really spoke to me. And then that was all before high school. And then when I went to HSPVA, I auditioned to get in, and I got in. And, you know, there was no like rock and roll department there. It was either you studied classical music or you studied jazz. And I didn't know anything about really either, but I could understand that jazz was a lot closer to, especially certain jazz, was a lot closer to the rock music I was listening to. And once I got in there, it took maybe a year, but I kind of got swept away with the jazz thing. I loved it, you know. It was a great environment to learn, and there were a lot of great musicians there. Robert Glasper was there when I got there. He's a bit older than me, but being around those guys every day and playing every day as much as we did really helped a lot, even more so than music school and college, whatever. That really helped me out.
So I listened to the your album, the Lapland album,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of my I love that style of music, man. I listen to a lot of I love the group. I don't know if you heard of them, Hospitality.
I have heard of that. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a really good group. It's kind of maybe more of hipster type of music,
right.
type of music.
Right.
Are you possibly thinking about making another album?
It's been a little while. I mean, for me, to be honest, most of the time when I've done that, I made one under my own name called Wilderness under Josh Mease, and then I made two more records under the name Lapland. And honestly, that's been kind of a money spending venture, not a money making venture. And at this point, I'm a little bit older. I have a kid. It's like, you know, yes, to answer your question, yes, I'd love to make another record. I don't know what that'll be or when that'll be. Right now, it's more like I need to make a living. And usually that, for me, that means being a sideman, meaning like playing bass or guitar with other people or writing with other people, or, you know, what I'm doing with Khalil, like, you know, that would fall in with that. And hopefully when you're doing that, there's artistic reward as well as monetary, you know, reward. So, yeah.
I get you. So where does your interest kind of lie musically right now? Is it still in creating music? Is it still in songwriting? Like where is your creative interest lie as far as music goes right now? Like, do you still want to perform live in front of crowds, or where are you at right now?
Sure. Yeah, I would like to. I mean, I think it all kind of feeds each part of it, you know, like playing shows with other people, backing them up is helpful. Playing the occasional show where it's you and your music, that's helpful. I mean, at the moment, I would say I'm not really writing a lot of songs with like words and singing and stuff like that. Usually it's instrumental. Like a lot of the stuff up on my Instagram is kind of what I'm into right now. It's like I make these little videos that are sort of collagey, and the music is maybe a little collagey too. It's just kind of old, kind of synthy 70s music. A lot of it's drawing on old like Italian library music. I don't know if you're familiar with that stuff at all, but library music is like some people call it stock music. It's music that's sort of ready-made for licensing for film and TV and commercials and stuff like that. And a lot of people have a lot of musicians have a negative association with it, but there's a lot of stuff like from the late 60s, 70s that's really cool, really vibey, you know? So I think the fact that I like making that kind of stuff now is actually what made Khalil sort of like be interested in using me for some of this stuff, you know, which led to, you know, indirectly to the Kanye thing. I think it's, you can hear a lot of those sounds in hip hop from my limited understanding of it. I think a lot of producers are using those sounds now, you know?
So how did you link up with Khalil?
Through a mutual friend of ours who's one of the other co-writers on this Kanye track, this guy Dan Seif, who's a bass player, great musician. I don't remember how I met Dan, but maybe we played together or we had a mutual friend or something like that. I think Khalil heard one of my kind of singer-songwriter albums. I think the one, maybe a really old EP I made, it was called Superiority Complex, and that had Robert Glasper on it, playing some of my music with me singing. That was kind of the first record I made where I was singing. Yeah. So I think he met me that way. He heard the music and liked it and kind of contacted me and we started talking.
You mentioned being independent, and you mentioned how your album was kind of a money spending more so than earning.
Yes.
But we also hear a lot of people, we talked to a lot of people on this podcast, and they talk about how it's easier and you don't need labels and you can always get on as long as you have a following and a fan base. And you being somebody who is truly independent, what do you think about that? How do you think about the music scene as far as independent artists go? Is it easier than it was, or is it in a lot of ways more difficult? to make, you know, a living?
That's a great question. It's probably a cop-out answer, but it's kind of both, you know. It's easier in the sense that as far as making music, you have access to a lot of great gear now. As far as, you know, this cheap, you can get your music out easily and cheaply, and hopefully some people can hear it. But then the downside of that is so many more people are making stuff, and it's kind of just more crowded. Not a lot of those people aren't worth a shit, you know. Like, to be honest, like a lot of the music that's coming out is garbage, but there's just a lot for people to sift through, which I think makes it harder. I like to think that, like, if you're making something good, eventually you can find a way to get it to people, you know. That's tough though. It's a tough thing. That's like a riddle I haven't always figured out, you know, for myself. But
so what are some other hip hop artists have you worked? I know you're not really that fluent in hip hop, but what are some other hip hop artists you actually work with?
Well, you know, it's funny, like, I'm not willfully ignorant about what's going on in hip hop, but I will say it's nice to show up to Khalil sometimes and not know who the fuck anybody is. Because then it's just, you're approaching it like, let's make something cool. You know, if it's somebody that's a big deal, like, I'm usually sort of aware of it, somebody will tell me, but I like not knowing anybody's name. Like, I learn their name, but not really knowing the history of what they do. We just kind of get together and try to make something good. So, you know, for me with Khalil, I kind of have dabbled over the years. I'll go in for an amount, you know, a few months, kind of a lot, and then I'll back away and do some touring with somebody else, or other stuff will get in the way, and then I come back. I'm trying to think, like, we did some stuff for Logic, Big Crit. We did some stuff for him. There's a lot of stuff we've done that just doesn't. You think it's going to go somewhere, and it doesn't end up on the record for some reason. And I mean, Khalil's in this world all the time. He's done stuff with a ton of people. Kind of the most, like, you know, he's had some tracks on Kendrick Lamar records. I'd have to, like, look at a list. I know he worked with Eminem and Dr. Dre, and he did some stuff on that first Anderson .Paak record, which is really cool.
Okay.
He does a lot of shit I don't even know about. But, you know, I think the fact that this thing we just did got placed on a Kanye record I think we're going to be more focused on doing more of it together, you know, with the same group of people. And I think it maybe will help us get some other.
Yeah, he also had a big single with the man. I'm the man.
Aloe Black. Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was a huge record.
It was, yeah, that was. And it was kind of flukier than the Kanye thing, because I think nobody knew who Aloe Black was at the time. I think what did it for that was, like, that song being licensed in those Beats commercials, you know, the headphone commercials.
Yeah.
That really did it. But that was a huge success for them. Less writers involved too, which is always good. If the record does well, the less people involved, the better for the writers, I would say. You know, this Kanye track, it's like 11 writers when I look at it. And I don't know who half of them are, but, you know, we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy because when I listen to that Lapland album, you know, I'm a former rapper.
Okay.
I used to love rapping over anything. I could rap over anything. And
right.
I always wanted to rap over stuff like that. But, you know, me being from Cleveland, Ohio, I never knew anybody that did anything like that.
Okay.
I only knew, like, the Fruity Loops producers who could
right.
You know, hip hop trap beats. So
yeah, sure.
I was kind of stuck like that, but I was amazed by the stuff you put on that album, man.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, Khalil loves that shit. It's not just for him. It's not all just like trap beats. That's an element. I mean, I feel like the trap element is in everything now. It's kind of like mainstream, but Khalil loves using acoustic instruments and, like, just what he's open to using whatever makes the song different or whatever makes it work, you know. And it's cool to work. He's not a trained musician, so he kind of speaks a different language than some of the players do, and he kind of thinks about stuff in a different way. It's really cool to work with somebody like that. It gives you a new perspective on making music.
Yeah, it's crazy because I would consider myself a retired rapper because I don't be rapping like that. But the last beat I rapped over, it was a couple months ago, and I was just messing around. But it was I forgot the name of the song, but the group was called Beach House.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I actually rapped over one of their beats. I send it to
Nice.
you whenever I get a chance. But
I love that shit.
yeah.
That
Yeah,
has a vibe, you know.
I like rapping over stuff like that. Sometimes I get tired of the regular hip hop beats, the typical hip hop beats.
Sure,
But
right.
I love rapping over stuff like that, man.
Well, when you say the last time you rapped, I mean, you still like you must rap in the car all the time or in the shower and the whatever,
Yeah,
like whenever you listen to music. Right. Right.
I ain't gonna lie. I'm kind of like Andre 3000. I got to get inspired. If I
Right.
hear a really good song, no matter if it's hip hop, if it's rock or something like that,
Right.
sometimes I'm like, damn, I love that beat. I can rap
Yeah.
over that. And
I
sometimes
mean,
I kind of freestyle in the car a little bit.
yeah. Not you know, for me, not to sound like some out of touch like old man or something. You know, the thing I love about hip hop, whatever. I love that. I love that it is like a collage. People, you know, a great hip hop producer can take all these disparate elements and combine them into something that I would never think of. I think that's incredible. You know, that's for me. I probably listen more to the beats and the music and hip hop tracks more than the rapping, I would say, which I'm probably missing out, you know.
Yeah.
But I love that element of it. It's always surprising, like hearing what Khalil does with what we come up with. I would never have thought of that shit, and I mean that in a good way, not like it's fucked up, but you know, it's always surprising. So anything's fair game, you know. It's like,
no, that's definitely true, man. And honestly, a lot of that credit goes back to Kanye as well, because he was the one who was pushing non-traditional sounding, you know, things to rap over back when.
Right.
And he got heavily criticized by a lot of people in rap. You know, when Yeezus first came out, people were like, we did not know what was going on with that album, man. The elements were just so out of this world at the time.
Sure, right.
But he's definitely one of those artists who will push the boundaries and use non-traditional sounding what we're used to in rap and push the sound forward. So we always appreciate him for that.
He's a visionary.
No, definitely. He's a lot of things, but he is also a visionary.
Right.
So we
good and bad, all of it. Yeah.
Yes. So what when you work with Khalil and y'all are working with an artist, you mentioned how sometimes you think something will be picked or something's going to be used and it's not. Like, how does that work? You don't have to say like your going rate for what you get paid or whatever, but do you still get paid if you do work for an artist and it's not used for an album, or is it just only if they pick what you made that you get something back from it?
I mean, in my limited experience, it's all spec work. You throw a lot of time in the well, maybe for nothing and maybe for something great. So you really kind of only get paid if they use it. And usually it's like a writing credit. It's something on the back end. It's not going to be like they don't buy you out or anything like that. Which in the case of this Kanye thing is great because like the back end would be much better than just like here's a flat, you know, thing. So, right.
I get you.
What was your initial thought when you found out you had the writing credit or he was going to use, you know, your sample on his song?
I was excited. I mean, shit, I was super excited. That was in 2018. He put this video up on Instagram where he was driving around in Chicago and in the studio, and it was using our sample where you could actually hear the sample. And he was singing the part that The Weeknd sings now himself, like double tracked, you know, to Kanye singing it, not auto-tune, no pitch correction, nothing like that. And just that alone, I was like, oh shit, you know, like I've made it or what, you know, which is silly, but it was just an Instagram video. But the thought was that was going to be on his next record. And I think later on, like he was going to put out a record after this appearance on SNL, maybe in early 2019 or late 2018. And the whole performance didn't go super well. Something happened. I think he had some kind of moment during the show, and he didn't put the record out at midnight when he was supposed to, or when he said he was going to. So I was like, oh fuck, all right, you know, there it goes. Like you just watch it evaporate. Like I just assumed that was it. And then he moved on to do the Sunday service thing he was doing with the choir and all that shit, and he made a record of that. So by then I'd forgotten about it completely. And then like my sister-in-law or somebody who follows hip hop shit like told me, oh yeah, Kanye's going to do a listening party in the stadium where the Falcons play, you know, on this random night. And I started texting with Khalil and my friend Dan, who's involved too. And they're like, yeah, it's, you know, it's going to be on the record. And they made a music video for it. I think, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. I don't know what happened to that, but basically it like got me excited again. Like, oh shit, it's back. It's still on the record. And I think maybe on the first one, The Weeknd wasn't on it yet. And it was still Kanye singing, like auto-tuned. So then he went through his whole process, moving from, you know, stadium to stadium. And he did 3 listening parties, and the track kept changing. You know, by the second one, The Weeknd was on it. Our sample was not in it anymore. And then by the third one, it was kind of had solidified. So just that whole process was kind of a roller coaster of like, oh, well, shit. Oh, we're going to get it. Oh, we're not, you know, like getting excited, then forgetting about it, getting excited again. So I can't believe it actually came out, you know. It's a great feeling, definitely. I mean, I've never been part of anything that's that commercially successful. Usually it's more like kind of weirdo indie shit. So, you know, it's good.
So how do you feel about that? Because me and Figgy go back and forth about a little bit about the listening party type thing. Some people think this might be the future of how records are broken now. We might see more artists do, you know, some listening events and then change the album as the weeks go by. Right. Some people are like, I don't want anybody to hear it until it's finished, you know. And that's how I kind of was with the arena listening. I know people who listen to all of them, all 3 of them. Right. But me, I'm like, I want to listen to the finished product and know what it's like when they were finally done with it. So how do you feel about that?
I mean, if it were me, I'd probably wait till I'm done with it and then, you know, just drop it like a bomb. But with him, he's so huge, he can kind of do whatever the fuck he wants. I mean, he sort of sets the tone for how he wants to do it. And I thought it was, at least for me, it was a little like nauseating week to week, wondering if it's going to come out or if it's going to change or what or maybe they're going to change the chords now and we won't have any fucking writing credit on it. That kind of got my nerves going, you know. But I thought the whole process was pretty interesting to watch him change it. I don't know if it's on purpose or not, but he's a brilliant like marketer, like the stuff he was doing in the basement. And then he recreated his setup in the basement on the floor of the arena for the next show. I thought that was pretty brilliant, you know? So I don't know. I mean, if anything, it's interesting. Even if you don't like it, it gets people kind of talking about it. So he's a genius at that. You know, he seems to just have a natural ability to get people's attention. So that doesn't answer your question, but that's just another way to do it. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because we say the same thing. It's like Kanye can do whatever he wants, but I don't think it's going to work for every artist. You know, not everyone can.
I think it's a brilliant idea because this ain't like a typical concert. This is like a, hey, you know, I just created an album that's not out yet, so come out to my album listening party, which is a concert, and I'm gonna perform everything. You can hear it exclusively. I feel like that's a great idea, but
it is.
I don't know if everybody can do that. I don't know if Lil Baby can pull that off, or you know, name anybody that's not a huge star can pull that off. But
very few.
I think the concept is brilliant because usually whenever an artist releasing an album, it's like a private listening party where it's only a few people and not a lot of access. But if somebody told me that, hey, let's say Paul Wall was doing a concert which was a listening party for his new album, I would be like, okay, let's go. Right. You know, I think that's a brilliant idea, but I don't know how labels would feel about that, doing that.
They probably don't like it. I mean, he can kind of do it. He's above the law in that way. Yeah. I mean, it's such a flex too to sell out a stadium just to play your unfinished record is such like a power move, you know.
The crazy part about it is a lot of the songs that's on the album people heard already. I didn't watch any of the streams because I wanted to hear the album. But a lot of the stuff he played on the stream was on the album. So if you watch the stream, you heard the album already. Right. And, maybe it wasn't mixed, but you heard all of the songs.
You did. So it was interesting to see people fight about what they liked about the tracks and stuff before he changed them. Like it was kind of like an open, like an open rehearsal or something like that, where he gets feedback. And I don't know if he took any feedback into account from just regular, people on message boards and shit like that. But
yeah, so I'm kind of curious if I don't know. I'm kind of curious if other people can pull that off.
probably not. Maybe one or two other people. Maybe Drake could. I mean, it seems like he can. I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd have to be somebody right at the top of the heap.
Yeah.
A special artist to be able to do that.
Yeah.
No, definitely. It would have to be one of the top people. Drake is one of these people who's a perfectionist, so I don't think he would ever put out unfinished music. But
Right.
Kanye's a lot more experimental like that. So yeah, he definitely is somebody who could get away with that, and we would still accept it.
Right. Sure.
So how do you feel about, like, going back to you being an independent artist? Like, how do you feel about the streaming era we're in right now? A lot of people think it's, kind of anti-artist, and the fact that, number one, music has become, like you said earlier, more disposable, a lot more people in it. And also that they're, hogging so much revenue for themselves that when the check comes, like some artists will show their check from streaming and it's like literally cents, not even $1 from a record that's actually pretty big.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this streaming era of music? Do you think that it's contributing to the lessened quality of music these days, or do you think it can be a positive thing as well?
I don't know if it's affecting the quality of music. I don't like it. I mean, it's so hard to make a living. It was so hard to make a living with music before this that this really makes it much harder. So I feel like, on one hand, like, fuck Spotify, stuff like that. But at the same time, I'm greedy and I want to check all the shit out. So I have a Spotify account. I have tons of playlists on there. That's how I find all this stuff, which is incredibly hypocritical, so it's a useful tool, but it really is not very artist friendly, so yeah, it's a bummer, man. I don't like it. I don't like it overall, but that's what it is. It's too late now. You can't undo it. It's not like you can take all that stuff away. So yeah, not good for artists, not good for independent artists, I would say. You have to kind of rely on touring, live revenue, or like selling merch, shit like that. I don't know. Yeah, it's tough. I think the days are over of being able to just like release a record every few years and kind of like not really tour much. And you can't do that. You have to do all the stuff to cobble together an existence.
No, that's 100% true. And I kind of feel bad because we're music fans here, and I used to buy albums just like everybody else. And now they don't really sell physicals anymore. So, usually I have a Spotify account too. So $9.99 a month, I can listen to all this music I want from any artist I want. But then you realize, wow, they're not really getting anything back from this. I'm not really supporting these artists at all. So there's definitely some guilt attributed to it as well. But
yes,
I don't.
Yeah, I want to say Mariah Carey got for her that Christmas song, which is I want to say that's the biggest streaming song ever.
Yeah.
I don't even think she got $1 million for it, man.
Probably not. I mean, I look at yeah.
That was the biggest streaming song ever, which is that All I Want for Christmas Is You. And I want to say she got like maybe $500,000 for it.
Right, which for her is like nothing. Yeah.
She wiping her ass with that money.
Right.
Yeah, it was kind of wild. I'm like, man.
I mean, they have these like Spotify calculators online where you can put in how many plays something got, and if you can have like 40 million plays, and it's like, here's $50,000, whatever. Which sounds like, I mean, that's a lot of sound. That sounds like a lot of money to me, but for all those plays, that's nothing. It's
she made $600,000.
You're right.
That time, between 600,000 and $1 million for that song.
Man.
And
yeah.
I want to say that was the biggest song in the history of streaming.
Yeah. I mean, that's a normal person, that'd be a lot of money for them, but for her, that's nothing. And most people are not going to have that many plays. If she's the top one ever, nobody's going to have that many plays. So it's kind of impossible. You really have to tour, especially if you're in the world I'm mostly in, which is like the indie kind of like folk world. you have to do so many other things. I mean, for me, I have to play gigs as a sideman, like I said. I have to do the stuff with Khalil, which so a lot of the stuff I actually enjoy doing too. So it's not like it's terrible, but I have to teach. I teach music sometimes too. I teach at the college I went to in New York sometimes remotely. Every musician I know that's making a living has to do. You have to do like 5 or 6 different jobs just to equal a modest income.
Yeah. So what do you so the genre of your music, what do you call it? Because I never I know I like that music, but I never knew what to call it. I usually just put in a name of a group in Pandora, and it usually play all the music I like. So what is the genre? Is it just indie rock, or what do you call it?
That's a great question. I mean, I kind of hate that shit, like the whole it's I can't even think of a genre right now, but I don't usually think that way. But when I've seen people label my shit before, like, wherever, if it's up somewhere, like it'll say like indie folk or indie, I don't know. It's kind of bullshit. I don't really know. I mean, yeah, I don't like to think of it that way, but yeah, I would say indie folk, some shit like that. But then I'm sure if you type that in, you'd hear all kind of stuff you don't like at all. It's not at all what you're talking about,
Folk music has a negative connotation to it, I feel, because when you think of that, you think of some old redneck in a barn strumming a banjo or something. You don't think of like any kind of progressive music. So maybe it's just how I hear it, but like I do enjoy that type of music, like the type of music you make. But when you hear folk music, like somebody says, I got this new folk album, you're not gonna be like, oh shit, let me
get that.
Yeah.
No, I know what you mean. I mean, the reason I stopped using just my name, Josh Mease, which is a kind of a terrible name to use because nobody can spell it. But when I would say it, people would picture a guy like on a stool in like a coffee house playing an acoustic guitar, which I have played in coffee houses before. I play the acoustic guitar, but like I don't want people to picture that. It just puts an image in people's minds. And for me, that's a negative image. Like, I don't want to play in a fucking coffee shop with an acoustic guitar. That's like, that sounds depressing to me. I mean, what you're describing, like a hick in a barn, like, I think if you say I play country music, that's maybe what people would think, or folk, I can see that too. I get why we have the names. I mean, you got to classify, people love to classify things. You have to kind of do that just to navigate all the different music that's out there, but it's tricky,
Yeah. No, we're definitely in, like, the genres are all blurred now anyway. Even rap half the time isn't rap. I feel like if somebody is singing on a song the entire time, that's not really rap, but it still gets called rap because, it's urban music. So it's kind of a mess.
That is kind of a mess. Yeah. Right. I mean, is there a ratio for you of like the singing to rapping? if it's more singing than rapping, then it's not.
It's really tough, man, because when you listen to a Drake album and it's like maybe 50% rap, 50% singing, it's like, is this an R&B rap? I mean, is it an R&B album or? It's really tough. And then you got people that's kind of rap singing. They got the other tune, they sound and they pretty much singing, but it's kind of a rap sing type of style.
Right.
Like, is this really hip hop? Is it really rap? Is it, is it R&B? And that was, I was actually talking to somebody about Nelly and how he was, he was kind of ahead of his time. And it was a whole bunch of hip hop artists. It's like, oh, that ain't rap. You had KRS-One saying that's not rap. And now you got people that's singing more than he did. And, so it's like, is that technically rap, or it's a crazy debate.
At the end of the day, it's like, do you like it? Does it speak to you? And then if it doesn't matter what it's called. You know what I mean? Like, I would probably gravitate to a hip hop track that did have more singing because I'm more drawn to the R&B side of things. Like Stevie Wonder was a huge influence for me, and Sly and the Family Stone and shit like that. So. And I love melodies of all kinds, so that I'm drawn to that, and I can relate to it more. So it's like I've never even thought about that. Like, oh shit, is this track hip hop or is this R&B? It's like, well, I mean, it might have elements of both. Ideally, maybe it would have elements of both. Maybe there's something for everybody in the track. I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one.
I think it depends on the beat. the actual
Uh-huh.
the instrumental. Because if it's like a rap type of beat,
Uh-huh.
you know, if they sing a little bit but kind of rapping, I will
Right.
put that more towards the hip hop, you know, genre than
Right.
anything else.
Sure.
But if it's like a rock beat, you know, it's more of the yeah. I wouldn't say, oh yeah, this is hip hop.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's more of a yeah. I think it depends
Right.
on it.
Right. Well, yeah, and it depends on what you like. If you don't like that, then I don't, everybody's definition is different. It's for me, I just have to find some. If I can find something I like about it or something that I learned from it, then it's good. It's just for me, it's kind of good music, not good music, bad music, but sort of. Like, does it speak to me? Can I find an element that I'm drawn to? Then it kind of doesn't matter what it is. Like, for me, I try to listen to all kinds of music and learn from it, because as a musician, I'd be stupid not to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I think people only really care during award season, because we see groups and people who are being put in categories they don't really belong, because of maybe whatever reasons. But you see country artists that aren't really country. You see rappers, that people in a rap category that are just not making rap like that. So people only really care when it comes to Grammy season. They're like, wait a minute, this is an
R&B album.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I listen to a lot of country music, but it's not like the shit that's on the radio now that's country music has nothing to do.
Exactly.
It's really, they're talking about blue jeans and a pickup truck, but aside from that, and maybe they have a twang in their voice, but there is nothing. It's like a fucking Britney Spears track or whatever. That's an outdated reference, but it's like a pop track with a dude with a drawl that's talking about his grandma and his pickup truck, and that's supposed to be country music. To me, I know what you mean. Like, maybe I probably have a stronger opinion about that because I know more about it. And I'm just like, well, that's not like Hank Williams, or that's not like some old school country shit that I like. That's some like modern Nashville bullshit, so I get that. That makes sense.
To be honest, man, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The rap sound has permeated everything, for better and worse.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the 808s are like, you hear, like you said, you hear country music and you hear 808 drum patterns on country music now. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Florida, Georgia line.
Really?
Right.
And it's crazy because I'm not a country music fan at all. I respect it a lot, but I just can't get with it. But the ones I do like are the Keith Urbans and the Florida Georgia lines, where I'm just like, okay, I can actually get with this. But
the beat, the feeling of it,
a lot of real country fans is like, that ain't country. Like, I can't get with that.
Right. I try to not get stuck in that shit. Like, oh, that's not rock and roll enough, or that's not country enough, or but it's inevitable. I mean, there's certain things you expect to hear when you hear. If you tune into a hip hop radio station, there's shit you want to hear. You don't want to hear like Toby Keith on there. You don't want to hear some other shit. I don't know.
I know you hear what's that song? Tennessee Whiskey gets played on urban radio too, so you never know.
Okay.
Like, you hear that song a lot on 102 over here in Houston. So,
man, I don't even know that. I'm so ignorant. I'm like an old man when it comes to music. I feel like everything I listen to is from the 60s and 70s. So I'm just like, what's that? Like, so is that a country track? Pretty much.
I guess you would call it that. It's what Chris Stapleton, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it is.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
That song gis played a lot in urban, but it's definitely not. I'm surprised you haven't heard of that song. It's been everywhere, man. You probably heard it and just didn't realize what it was called. I'm sure
I probably, in like a restaurant or something.
Grocery store. Yeah.
It's amazing how old I feel, just walking. I'm just like, what the fuck is going on?
I'm the same way. It's funny because with us doing this podcast, it kind of make me listen to more newer music. Because if I wasn't doing this podcast, I would probably stay in the probably the 90s, 2000s, the 80s when it comes to music, or 70s. I could go far back. The furthest I could go back is the 60s.
Okay.
Now with me doing this podcast, I got to check out the newer artists.
Sure, that's good. That's like good.
That. But my comfort zone is, the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s.
Yeah. I mean, if I was smart, I would do that too, since music is supposedly what I'm doing for a living. Like, but I will say, with the hip hop shit, with what I do with Khalil, I kind of like not knowing what the fuck is going on, because then I'm just approaching it in a musical way, and it's not like, oh, I'm gonna do this thing that I just heard on this record on the radio. It's more just like, what do I like right now? What weird shit am I listening to? Not that I'm gonna play, the banjo or some shit like that, or like, whatever. But ignorance is bliss sometimes, just not as a musician, you kind of find your lane and you figure out what you like. But I would actually love to have an excuse where I had to listen to new shit just so I know what's going on. And especially having a child, as she gets older, it's going to turn into just like, oh, dad, you don't know what the fuck, listen to all this music, and I'm just going to be like a grandpa, whatever. So that's the danger of it.
So are you a fan of like kind of recreating that that old school sound when it comes to producing music? Because it's an art. Well, he's not an artist. He's more of a producer, but he go by the name of Adrian Young.
Okay.
And he produced a lot of stuff for Ghostface Killer. And it's kind of like that old school sound. And he actually made a new album. It was a couple years ago by the Delphonics. Who's an old group from the 60s to 70s.
Right.
And it was a new album. I want to say it was like 2014, and he created that old sound from back in the 70s. And old instruments and stuff like that. So are you into that type of stuff as well?
Absolutely. I mean, not even a conscious effort, like I'm going to make this sound old. It just happens to be, those are the sounds I like more than, I'm into the modern shit too. There's a lot to learn from that stuff, but I'm drawn to sounds from old records. I mean, it's just, there's a warmth to it. There's a depth to it that I like. I actually, there's a less detail in it in a way. It's more flattering, It's like if I had a filter on the camera right now that made me look 20 years younger, or looked a little, I just looked a little more interesting, a little better. It's just, it has a vibe to it. I like that, And like you said, Delphonics, like I love old soul music and shit like that. It just, the reverbs they use, the echoes they use, the drum sounds, the bass, just everything is like what I want. Yeah, it's beautiful. I love that shit.
Yeah, and if you haven't heard that sound, if you watch the show on Netflix called Luke Cage, it's a Marvel series.
Right.
They played a lot of their instrumentals in that song.
Oh, cool.
Well, in that series. And like I said, I played, my dad grew up in the 60s, 70s and all that. And I played this current album, which came out in like 2014. And it sounds super old. It sounds like it came out in 2000. It sounds like it came out in 1970.
Yeah.
And he recreated that sound in the 2000s. In 2014, and it was amazing to me.
Yeah, a lot of musicians are always trying to do that. I mean, there's a record that probably came out a similar time that Questlove produced, an Al Green record, and it sounds just like one of the old Al Green records from the 70s. They did a great job. I mean, it would be nice if there was one new element to it in a way, to keep it a little modern. But I just the sounds are so cool. Those especially for Questlove's a drummer. Like I can see as a drummer how you would just. Those Al Green drum sounds are the shit. They sound so cool, It's hard to get that same thing now with modern gear and with modern production techniques. It's just not quite the same,
Yeah, I feel like you had to get those old instruments because
absolutely,
Adrian Young in this interviews, I felt like he bought a whole bunch of old instruments that made that sound because he couldn't get that sound from Fruity Loops or whatever. He had to actually, search for the certain organs and the certain guitar stuff like that to get that sound.
And all that shit has gotten so expensive, like back in the 90s, people were throwing these beautiful old synthesizers in the trash because they were old pieces of shit. And now everything is, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars as old synthesizers. And old guitars are crazy, mostly because of collectors. Old basses are crazy, mostly because of collectors. But those old instruments have such a vibe that musicians are drawn to them. At least musicians I want to play with and I want to work with. I know, like Khalil, his studio is filled with old synthesizers because they just have such a vibe. You turn them on and you play one note, and it's like, oh shit, Whereas you go to Guitar Center and you get some new keyboard that looks like a fucking spaceship, and it just doesn't have the same. Doesn't have the same thing.
It's not the same sound. And it's crazy because even, I bring up Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak.
Right.
They kind of bringing that sound back a little bit.
Yeah. Right.
And I don't know how they doing it, but it kind of sound a little old school-ish. It, you know.
Oh yeah.
It's to me, to be honest, it sounds way too clean, because if you listen to the sounds in the 70s, you could tell, you could kind of hear little errors here and there. But with Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars, it just sounds way too clean to me.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
A lot of people probably don't understand, but
sure. I love. I mean, I do
really
like the way
good.
that shit sounds. The new one sounds good. I know what you mean, though. It's a little. They probably did use a bunch of old instruments and stuff like that. I know some of the dudes that played on that record, and they're great musicians, and I'm sure they played old basses and guitars and keyboards and stuff like that. But it sounds like it was done in Pro Tools, you know, like a modern, which is, you know, I use that shit too. It's a lot easier than having an old tape machine that you're recording to, but if you can incorporate elements of both, that's the shit.
Yeah, if you listen to something from the 70s, it sounds like the needle is there. It's
right.
You could kind of hear that crackling a little bit.
Yeah, there's a little dirt on everything. Yeah.
It don't sound as clean as Pro Tools. It don't sound clean as an MP3, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it's like the equivalent of like a modern camera where you're looking at stuff in HD, and sometimes the detail is too goddamn much. You don't want to, like, for me, I don't want a 4K image of my 4K face that you
exactly.
It's nice if there's a little, like, I just accidentally turned the light on. I was like, oh shit! Like, I want to keep it kind of dark, and
I need a little static in the picture.
Right. I mean, yeah. That kind of like, that's how life is. Life is not fucking HD all the time. It's a little fucked up. So, you know, I do like that.
It really is crazy how, and I've noticed it's not just in music, it's everything, how we are nostalgic for everything old now. Like vinyl sales have now surpassed CD sales for the first time, I believe. Like we were craving that old, when back then, I remember, you know, I'm an 80s baby too. I remember the future. We just thought everything, like we were ready to throw everything old out. We said, let's go electronic everything. Let's go bigger graphics on the video games, bigger stuff on the movies, all electronic sounds on the, it's going to be so easy. You can make albums at home with this new technology. That was a big thing, to have your own recording studio in your own house. But something has been lost, I feel, in that. And there's a soul that's missing now, I feel, with the
it can be that
technology.
way. It's all a little too easy, maybe. I mean, as a musician, you know, most of the time I'm recording on a computer, like, but when I've had to record a tape, which happens sometimes, it makes you play better because it's harder to fuck with. Like, you don't want to go back and punch in 500 times. Like, you have to kind of play it right. So it does something to your brain. You know, it's I'm into the elements of like digital technology, making collage stuff. Like, a lot of hip hop wouldn't be possible without that digital technology. But, you know, it just feels a little more real to me. I think, you know. You can get stuck in, man. You can get stuck in that too, so that's not always good. But, you know,
that's true. No, that's true. It's tough, man. It seems like all of us would just want to go back to the past a little bit. So maybe it's just like that when you get old. I don't know if it's just like that when you're old. Maybe it is. Man.
I had a conspiracy, man, because I don't want to get way off track, but I was watching a series on Netflix, which is like a 9/11 series. It was a documentary on 9/11.
Right.
And mind you, this is 2001. So I'm watching these videos, and these videos look like they from the 70s or 80s.
They look like shit, right?
Yes. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, I don't think the quality was that bad back then.
Yeah.
This is 2001, 2002, up until 2004. And
That's
the quality just looked so bad. So I'm like, dang, my conspiracy is maybe they trying to make these videos look old, just so it can make it seem like it's so long ago. And I always heard the conspiracy is about in the 1960s, how it was color back then, but a lot of the history they try to put it in black and white to make it seem like it was so long ago.
Oh, so you're right. But interesting.
The quality looks so awful, man. From 2001.
Yeah, I mean, that was pre HD, I guess, right? Like, I remember when HD TVs. I'm dating myself, but I remember when the HD stuff came out, I was like, holy shit, you know, like, I would believe that maybe those videos too, you know, you buy some camcorder back then and you thought like, oh man, this looks incredible. And like, if you saw that video now, you just, it's just a piece of shit, you know? But maybe you're right. Maybe it is a conspiracy. Maybe they add a little extra bullshit to it to make it look worse. You know?
Yeah, because I seen a post. You can't take a post on social media too serious, but it was a post saying, "Hey, they putting these not Malcolm X, but Martin Luther King pictures in black and white to make it seem like it was so long ago.
Oh shit!
And it was only like 50 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, right.
But
you never know.
After watching the 9/11 stuff, it was like, man, like I remember during this time, and they making this thing like it was the 80s.
Yeah, right, man, that's true. I lived in New York when that happened. I remember running down there and watching shit. Not to take it off the rails, but yeah. So that my memory of that is very like visceral, and I remember what it looked like and smelled like and all that shit. But like, so every time I see a video, I kind of snap back into that. But I would believe those videos.
It is 9/11. It is that 20th anniversary of 9/11.
Yeah.
So
today, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So how was it when you was down there, man? Was you scared or?
I lived in Brooklyn at the time, and me and my friend, another Houstonian musician named Alan Hampton, who also went to PVA. We lived in an apartment in Brooklyn, and when I think my parents called me to wake me up, and I ran down to the waterfront, and you could see across Lower Manhattan. And I got there right as like the second one fell down, and it was just like a cloud of shit headed towards us, and you could smell it and feel it, and it made you cough, and it was fucking horrible, man. It was horrible. Not to, now we're taking a strange turn on the, on the podcast, but yeah, it was brutal, man. It was brutal. Yeah, I'm glad we're far away from that.
I was watching that doc, and when it happened, I was like in 7th grade, and I was actually a lot of people I'm close with was at school, so but I was kind of going through a weird situation where the district had me going to another school that I wasn't going to before, so we was trying to get that figured out to get me back to the original school. So I was at home when it happened. Okay. I was actually watching it on the news.
Oh shit! Yeah,
and, so.
Maybe it's better to be with family for something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. So I really, and by this time we ain't really had cable or nothing like that. So I was flicking around, and every station had that video. They was reporting on a plane going into the building. Right. And at that time, I'm in 7th grade, so I'm like, why is this a big deal? Like,
right.
Why is every channel got this on there?
Right.
And then I remember my dad coming in there and saying, "Hey, we under attack." And I'm thinking, like, are we physically under attack? Like, as far as like
in Cleveland, you're hiding under the table. Yeah. Shit, man.
And he kind of explained to me. And at that time, I never heard the word terrorist. So he was explaining like these they say it was a terrorist attack and all this other stuff. And I want to say maybe 30 minutes later, we heard on the news they were saying every flight was canceled, so nothing should be flying. And 30 minutes later, we heard a plane flying, and it was loud as hell. We like what? We both looked at each other and we like what the hell is this?
Yeah, man.
And that was the plane that flew over Ohio and crashed into Pennsylvania.
Oh man.
So that was that plane. And mind you, we just watched the news and they said everything has been canceled and it should be nothing flying. And that was the one thing that was flying. I'm like, what the hell? And it was super loud. Like we looked out the back window. Like
didn't sound like a regular plane.
Yeah, it was super loud. But
that's terrible.
Yeah, it was crazy. But watching that doc, it was like, man, I didn't realize how much stuff was going on during that time, how serious that was.
Yeah, right.
How it was to be in no buildings and, people, jumping out. It was hard watching that documentary.
I'm sure. Yeah, I know. I see stuff like that on the list on Netflix, and I can't click on it, man. I don't know. It's
it was people on the planes calling their families. I was like, oh man, I ain't realize, I'm in 7th grade, but I ain't realize how crazy that was.
Yeah.
And so
that makes me
just watching that documentary is just like, wow, I really lived through that.
Yeah. Man, you're making me feel old, 7th grade. Fuck. Getting older every day.
Yeah, you talk about you was in college and
I just turned 40, man. So I'm I just said 40. You know what? I lied. I'm 41. Fuck. Yeah,
I forget too, man. I'm about to be 35 next year.
Okay.
So, I'm forgetting that too.
Yeah, I'll be 33 next year.
Okay, man. Well, sounds good. I'll trade you.
Behind you.
I'll trade you anytime.
Shoot, we don't want to hold you too long, man. We got to be respectful of your time. You know, we're notorious for holding our guests too long, and sometimes they got things going on. So, but we do want you to plug anything you have going on, man.
What's the new prize that you got going on, man?
Shit,
yeah,
man. That's a great question. I wish I had more going on. You know, actually, stuff is just kind of getting going again. Work is starting to come back post-pandemic. So, you know, currently I'm trying to hit it hard with Khalil and the other guys and try to get more samples placed, and I think this is going to help that. So that's kind of the main thing I'm doing at the moment. And I'm doing a little touring coming up, which is also, you know, as a sideman, as a guitar player, I play with a band called Fruit Bats, which is another, I'm going to say the word folk
okay.
rock band. But that's fun. I mean, it's a strange time to tour right now because shit is so.
You said Fruit Band?
Fruit Bats.
Fruit
which
Bats.
is also, yeah, it's a funny name. But I play guitar in that band. Bunch of great musicians. It's weird though. Like touring right now is a little dicey, you know, as you would imagine. Like protocols in different states are different, and you know, there's a bunch of mandates at all the places we're playing. So got to navigate that, and you know, right now it's more about the Kanye thing, just trying to capitalize off that and make some other stuff happen. So yeah.
I get you. And where can people follow you on social media?
I got rid of most of them except for Instagram. That's at josh.mease. I could spell it if you want me to. I always have to spell it because it's weird.
Mease. Yes.
Correct. Yes. Thank you. That's a man. No more Twitter. Yeah. No more of that shit.
Wow.
No more Facebook.
Why you get rid of Twitter? Why you get rid of all that?
Man, it's not that useful for musicians. I feel like all the sports people like it. You know, that's where everybody communicates about sports. But musicians don't use it that much, or at least the people I play with. And Facebook got to start. You know, it started feeling like a place for my parents to be and check up on me. So I got rid of that. I'd rather talk to them on the phone. So. Yeah, just Instagram. I want to keep it simple. I like that medium too. I like the visual medium more, you know, where you can just kind of post a picture and that's enough.
Yeah, most of my following is on Twitter, and most of them are from, you know, the sports side.
Right.
So it's kind of strange. And whenever I tweet something random like hip hop or something like that, and I get a whole bunch of people like, "What is that?" And
stick to sports.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Yeah. And I should have talked to you more about sports, man. I love football. That's my thing. So that's what got me listening to John's show so much and your show.
So how you feel about the Texans, man? It's a lot. It's a lot going on, man.
It's so terrible.
It's gonna be a long season.
Oh my God. Yeah, I've never been this not excited about a season, you know, like the whole mess with Deshaun, like it was already a mess before all that shit started. And that just adds a whole other weird element to it where it's like, man, you know, it seems like Houston is a bit cursed with sports. Like I grew up watching the Oilers with my dad, and I would, you know, when the Rockets were so great, I watched all that shit and I loved it. And since then it's just been kind of like bullshit most of the time. You know, we had the Astros a few years ago. That was a fucking lie. So it's like, man, is anything good going to happen? Like, I love the Texans, but I don't have a lot of faith that the people in charge are going to do the right things. I'm worried about Jack Easterby still being there. That moment when they didn't fire him, you know, I thought like, oh, he's out of here. And they didn't do it. It's like, oh no, this is not going to go well. You know,
it's so crazy because, you know, I grew up in Cleveland. So I grew up a Browns fan.
Ooh,
and
yeah.
I told everybody how, you know, whenever the Browns are really bad, they just clear out house and start fresh.
Right.
And I thought they was going to do this with, you know, with the Texans. You know, they fired Bill O'Brien early. And I'm thinking like, you know what? They're going to get rid of Romeo. They're going to get rid of Jack Easterby and bring in somebody, you know, bring in a whole new regime.
Right,
and
as they should have.
They kept Jack Easterby. They kept Romeo. I don't even know what he doing, but they still got him around. And it's just like, damn, this is something I never seen before. And you actually have a franchise quarterback who's pissed off at the age of 25 and 1 out. And I never seen that before.
That's so terrible.
I know the Browns is really shitty. They won the whole season without winning the game, but they never had a franchise quarterback before.
I know. The Texans have a unique way of.
Yeah, they never pissed off a franchise quarterback where he wanted out of Cleveland. And this is something I've never seen before, man. And then not to mention, they don't have any draft picks. So it's not like they have a whole, a future of young players that, you can look forward to.
Very bleak.
I've never seen this before, man.
The moment they pissed Deshaun off and they snuck around and they hired Casario, just the way they did it, they acted like they were going to hire the guy from the Steelers who was very qualified. They didn't do that. I thought they were going to bring Eric Bieniemy in. They didn't do that. It was just like, you know what? Fuck this team. And now I say this every few years because this is just how it is as a Texans fan. But, you're right. Like, there's not a lot of hope for the future, man. Like, I think Casario is very competent. I don't know what Jack Easterby's thing is. I don't know what the fucking Chaplin is doing, making personnel decisions. It's like a company. It's just mismanaged. And it's not ever going to be successful till somebody like manages it from the top down correctly. And I don't know when that's going to happen because Cal McNair is, I don't know what he's doing. I don't know.
It's
sad. It's a little sad.
It's really confusing because even when the Browns went 0-16, you still had, good young players on there and you had the first overall pick.
Yeah. So that's at least simpler, They're going to be terrible. It.
Yeah, we got the young players,
right.
Even though we didn't win a game, we got the first overall pick and we could get whatever quarterback we want. And,
right.
We can do whatever.
Some rays of hope. Right.
Yeah. Here they went 4-12. They got a quarterback that don't want to be here. And you don't have a draft pick to the third round.
It's terrible. It's so terrible.
You get a coach that wasn't even looking for a coaching job.
Right.
And it's like, damn, like, how can I get excited about this team? And it's the third oldest team in the league. So it's just brutal, so much, man.
I feel like this season you guys are going to have a hard time when they're like 3-7. Like, what the fuck are you guys going to talk about? This, like, not to get into that, but it's like, man, give you guys something to work with, something hopeful to talk about at least. Fire somebody, fucking get rid of somebody.
It's going to be rough because I feel like the city never went through anything like this.
Yeah,
where a rebuild, because I know the city went with a rebuild with the Astros, but they never been through anything like this with the Texans, where it was like, hey, this is a flat out rebuild and we're not going to be good this year. And everybody all over the place. It's going to be a struggle, man.
When they brought O'Brien in, I thought, okay, that was sort of a rebuild, but they kept Rick Smith in. Even that, I think it's good to just, if it's not working, just blow it up, start over. It's painful, but just get it over with, move on, So I keep saying I'm not going to watch that bullshit this year, which I might not, but I probably will get sucked back in. I can't not. I tried it, I've lived in New York. I didn't like any of the New York teams. I live in LA now. I don't give a fuck about the Rams. I mean, the Chargers are kind of fun, but like, this is not a great football town. It's a good college football town, but I just don't like these other teams. I can't quit on these Houston. The pain. I'm addicted to it at this point.
Gonna quit, man. I watched every 0-16 game from the Browns.
Right.
And
I'm sorry.
I said I was gonna stop, but I didn't, man. So you ain't gonna stop, man.
Yeah. I love it. I love it too much. I get sucked back in. So I'm a Houstonian forever. I always have to watch the teams. So
the key is, man, it's Houston over everything, but you got to find your other team that you got to root for, but you can't root for them when they play the Texans. That's how they was the Browns, man. I had a favorite team outside of anything Cleveland.
Who was that?
Football. I was a Patriots fan.
Oh,
I was a fan of the Patriots the year Tom Brady won his first championship.
Okay, right.
Just how they was the underdogs and they beat the Rams. So I've been on board since that year.
Okay.
But if they ever played the Browns, I never won against the Browns.
Of course, right. Well, shit, maybe I should just pick the best team and they're my team. Like my wife is from Carolina, so I like the Panthers all right. I don't know. I just can't get excited. I'm stuck with Houston. I love it too much. So
Yeah, go through the growing pains with us, man.
I will. I have before and I will again. My dad, who's like, close to 80, is like, like, this is a newer thing for you, but I've been dealing with this my whole fucking life. So just get used to it. Just learn to love the pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, the best way to approach the sports environment as a Houston fan is to approach with the Buddhist mindset, I feel. Just remove all emotional attachment to any of the teams and just watch the games for what they are and accept any outcome. Like, that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, that's where I'm trying to get, man. I'm trying, as I get older, I feel like I care less and less about sports to an extent. So I'm trying to get to the point where I'm just like, win or lose, I can still enjoy watching the game and let it be what it is. But it's tough, man.
The beauty of the game, the integrity of the game, the beauty of it.
Exactly.
I wish I'm not quite there yet. I'm trying, but I'm not. I don't know.
It's tough, man. It's tough. I still get mad when the Rockets lose.
There's a fine line between zen and just dead inside, where I don't feel anything.
Yes.
I'm numb to this shit. So I don't know. I'll get there. I'll find it.
Yeah.
That's true.
Even with the Rockets, man, they got a young team. I think fans just need to realize, hey, a young team, it's going to take some time to
Absolutely.
Get to the playoffs, man. This is a very young team. And I don't think they just going to skate to the playoffs like that, man.
Right.
So I think a lot of people just need to get used to, this new Rockets scene with no James Harden.
Right.
Just, it's going to take some time, and hopefully they'll recruit a superstar to join this young team and then be a contender.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a more of a fair weather Rockets or basketball fan. The thing I love about football is just how few games there are, how important each one feels. It just feels like the state, it's like they're literally risking life and limb to do it. It's like just the stakes feel so great. I do love basketball. I love playoff basketball, but there's something about football. It just feels so important.
Yeah. Every game is important, man.
Right. Do or die. I like
17, that. Well, 17 games now, but every game is important. Right. There's no this week don't really matter unless it's like week 17 or 18 or whatever.
Right. Yeah. We don't have to worry about that this year. So the whole season is just going to be like week 17 where you're just, we're not going to be in the playoffs. Who gives a
shit? The key is you got to watch more college football to see who's a good quarterback.
There you go.
Prospect to see.
Find something to get excited.
They might get him number 1 overall.
Right. That's a good idea.
That made things better, yeah.
Yeah, sure. There you go. It's a good way to spin it.
The worst part, I mean, and this is why you have to adapt to that Buddhist mindset, is because we're gonna have to. It's one thing for your team to go through a rebuild. It's another thing to know that you had a franchise quarterback, to know that you had a top 5 NBA All-Star on your team. And you lost them both over some bullshit, and they didn't have to be gone. So you have to see them. Once I see Deshaun win his first game in another uniform, I'll be sick. Like, I might literally throw up.
It's still hard because he's still on the team.
I know.
He's right there.
And it's like, damn, like,
he's right there.
Imagine, I don't think he's going to be on the sideline at all during the games, but just imagine if he was.
I don't know who you would throw the ball to.
Taylor throw a pick or Davis Mills throw a pick. And they gonna pan the camera right to him. It's like, he should be in this game, man.
I know. Well, I mean, Tyrod Taylor doesn't throw picks, but he doesn't do much else either. So
he ain't about to win a game.
Just to wait so long for a good quarterback, waiting for Deshaun that long, he gets here and it's just a fucking mess, I mean, in a way, all the controversy with him kind of softens the whole thing a little bit for me, because it's like, well, it would have been fucked up anyway. So I can forget that the Texans completely fucked it up right before that, So
I'm wondering with the controversy too. If he didn't request a trade, I feel like the Texans will still stand behind him, and he'll probably be playing.
Probably, yeah, right.
But with all this, he won't play it down again.
Right.
It's just making it so bad, man.
It's terrible. Well, you should be excited. I think Baker Mayfield is good. You're going to have I think the Browns will be good this season, man. They're so talented,
Yeah.
Hope you're happy.
I can't be too happy in Houston, though, man. I'm rolling with the Houstonians. Okay. My license say Texas, so
right. How long have you lived there? I don't know.
I've been here since 2016.
Okay, cool.
So going on for 5 years.
Yeah. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. a great city. I miss it.
Yeah. Got to come back sometime, man.
Well, yeah, I do.
Stop by
sometimes.
Again.
Yeah, definitely.
Just be careful because our COVID restrictions are a lot less than where you are right now.
Man,
so
I was just there.
Very carefully.
I was just there. We actually drove from LA all the way out to Carolina. We stopped in Texas twice, in Houston, and it was shocking. Once I realized what a bubble we're in here in LA, like people wear their masks everywhere. Not to be, I don't want to make your podcast controversial, but people are wearing their masks all the time here. The vaccination rates are better. I was shocked everywhere else we went. It's like, oh shit, okay, this is pretty real.
Shoot, we was having concerts here. I want to say April or May of 2020.
Right,
and it was like full blown.
Right,
it's just like, damn, you don't even see a mask in sight. To the point we thought the video was old.
Yeah, right.
Like, no, this was last night.
I've noticed with musicians, I know friends that are touring and stuff, when the work started to come back, first it was like, oh yeah, well, I got to get a gig in Orlando. I got a gig in Gainesville and Miami. I got a gig in San Antonio. It was all like the places where it's a little looser.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit. Okay. They cornered the market for a minute on live music, which is nice.
Yeah.
At what cost? I don't know.
Florida was a hot spot for musicians, artists, sports events, everywhere.
It was Florida, Atlanta, and Texas.
Right. There you go. It might still be for a while. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Well, no, I don't make it political, though.
I know. I just want everybody to be healthy.
Go vote.
I want health. Good health for everybody. Gotta go. Yeah, you gotta vote. If you got a problem with something, vote about it.
Yes, very true. Very true. Well, I know we wrapped it up about 30 minutes ago, but we got to wrap it up again.
Okay.
So thank you again for joining us, man. Really appreciate it. Josh Mease, aka Lapland.
Thank you.
Read his music. Make sure you support the artist. And
that album is fire, man. I love
it.
Thank you, man.
Really good.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. It's been great to talk to you both.
We appreciate it, and I think with the Kanye feature, I think a lot's going up for you, man. So we like to get people before they become super famous and don't want to talk to nobody local. So we're like,
oh man,
so we definitely want to make sure we get you before, because I feel like your value is just going to skyrocket from here, man. So
thank you, man.
Definitely be seeing you in the future.
I'm always happy to talk. Yeah,
we had a lot of underground artists who is now doing a lot of good things at the moment. It's like, oh, they was on the podcast.
Right. So, that's cool. It's good to be first, or they're close enough. So yeah, man. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
All right.
End it right there. That's cool.